in Europe and Germany.
Sure, 1822.
Yes, that's right. So um, it all you can't it all sounds bizarre and everything until you begin putting all of these pieces together, and then you find more and more evidence, and pretty soon you have an airtight case using government data.
Sure. And published books by
Yes.
quote-unquote reputable scholars.
Right.
Who are always just slightly unable to complete the picture.
Right.
Purposely.
Right.
Because the academic profession does not allow you to fully bring all these different elements of knowledge and information together.
Right.
In a comprehensive whole that really gives away the game.
Right.
This is why what we're doing today here is
yes.
So exciting to me.
So let's go back and look at the history.
Please.
Chancellor Katehi was hired from the University of Illinois, which is a military-based university. It's where the first computer and computer language was made for the Navy. The Navy is there. It's their research lab, their university. And ENIAC was the first computer, and it had a language. And then later on, Fortran came out of the University of Illinois also. But that's where Katehi and her husband landed. Mm-hmm. And there she ended up, her grad students, of course, did the research, but she ended up with 19 antenna patents. And these antennas now, waveforms, are the new mechanism to enslave society, to take over the whole entire world. That's what HARP is. There are HARP bases all over Antarctica, and that's in training the Earth's magnetic field. And the animal studies for mind control were done here and are still being done here on the UC Davis campus. Mm-hmm. And I remember in the 60s, the students would come back from that secret facility, and they were students who did work studies. So they worked in the monkey colony, and they said the monkeys have the top of their heads cut off, and there are wires coming out of them, and they can transmit waveforms to them and make them just climb up and down in their cage all day long. They can command them to do anything they want to. And it sounded so out there that I didn't pay very much attention to it. But now I understand as I see this all unfolding and other experiences I had.
Speaking of the literature, ladies and gentlemen, you might want to check out a book by Dr. Jose Delgado.
Yes.
Called Toward a Psycho-Civilized Society.
Yes.
And you have photographs in there with the monkeys, the simians, with part of their skulls removed. And I think the technology was called the stem sievers.
Yes.
So this is decades-old technology.
Yes.
Who knows what they're doing now, but you're saying that the antenna technology that Linda, quote-unquote, P.B. Katehi, is responsible for, is integral to this new phase in mind control, behavioral control?
It's the delivery system.
The delivery system. Okay.
Yes.
Please go ahead.
And Delgado also wrote a book, The Biology of Aggression. And so they can use these frequencies to cause food riots. They can use these frequencies as in Rwanda, that big, huge massacre in Rwanda. Those were Russian, Ukrainian oligarchs who sent thugs down to Rwanda. The whole place had been wired up with antennas. These guys had been hooked up to computers, and they were programmed before they went down to Rwanda to carry out the slaughter. And it was plain and simply so that the Russian and Ukrainian oligarchs could steal all the wealth of the colonists. And the order was to slaughter all of them, every single white person, and steal all of their wealth, go into the banks, strip their bank accounts, take all their securities from safe deposit boxes. And the Africans there had no money, so they were used to cover the slaughter of the white people.
Mm-hmm. And now, closer to home, this is speculative, of course. Did you see something similar taking place recently down in Burlingame, California, when the social justice warriors started rioting and acting up. Could you?
I didn't know about that.
Oh yes, overturning police cars, vandalizing them, beating up supporters of Party A, B, or C. This is when Donald Trump came into town.
Oh, I
earlier
remember
this
that.
week. Yes.
Yeah.
But what you're describing there was caught on camera by people such as InfoWars news gatherers.
Yes.
And it's been seen by millions of people all over the world.
Yes,
so, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to see a real live, because Rwanda might be removed in time and distance from us, but if you want to see this type of control being rolled out here and now, right, in our area, in the United States of America, take a look at that YouTube footage and break it down. I suspect that the antenna arrays were out there.
Absolutely,
you agree with
that? Absolutely, 100%. All of the UC campuses now, the street corners have been taken up. They've put surveillance and other technology packages into the ground. They dug down 5 feet, and then they cemented it in so that it can't be removed. And it's hooked up to the street lights, to the smart meters, to cell phones. It's all integrated now. That's what Katehi's technology is about. It's about integrating all of that. So you get a huge array of antennas that are all integrated, and you control everything.
So the HARP model has been regionalized or localized.
It's been localized. It's been made more granular. It's more powerful, but it's more miniaturized. It's gotten smaller and smaller and more efficient, and had a bigger and bigger impact.
Okay.
So it's a creeping mechanism for controlling humanity.
I've been teaching here at UC Davis for 20 years now, and beginning about 8 years ago, perhaps even 10 years ago, I began to see a 180-degree shift in the intelligence level, intellect, analytical ability, expressive ability, intellectual ability, of course, I mentioned.
Yes.
And in attending that, I also saw a gradual acceleration of hostility and anger.
Yes.
And much of this has been directed towards myself and towards other faculty people.
That's right.
And I'm reading that this has been taking place coast to coast, north to south at different universities. So where do the students, undergraduates, I'm at the university, where do they fit into this picture? Are they being used as shock troops for this transformation?
Oh, absolutely. It's even worse than that. Yeah. But let me tell you what it's like in the 60s. In the 60s, when I was a student at UC Davis, I used to go home to Santa Barbara for holidays and summers. And I noticed, or just Easter break or something, and I noticed that when I was driving back on Highway 5, I'd start getting really depressed about coming back to Davis. Something, this horrible depression and overwhelming fear and uneasiness came over me, and I just never could understand it. But it would always start about 150 miles from here. And so very recently, I was reading about HARP facilities in California. Well, there's a HARP facility in Visalia, and it's to transmit Voice America to countries around the world. And there's always also a naval air base in Visalia, a U.S. Navy air base. So that transmission was coming out of that HARP facility in Visalia.
I see.
And that was a long time ago. That was in the 60s. But recently, a woman in Texas, I was telling her about that. She said, my friend has a son who's at Davis now, and he's complaining about the same thing. And there's also a very, very large antenna on the south side of the freeway on your way from Davis into Sacramento. There's a huge antenna out in the middle of a field. That's also a Navy antenna. And that's integrated with the HARP technology and with antennas up in Oregon. So they've been doing this since the 50s.
My gosh. So these are like carrier waves that are affecting behavior.
These are ELF, extra long frequency, or ultra long frequency carrier waves, and they put the applications on that carrier wave. So right now they're transmitting suicide frequencies that make people commit suicide, and this is all over the Davis campus. It's all over California. There's signs and billboards all over San Francisco, right on the main Market Street. They're huge 10-foot high displays along the sidewalk right next to the curb, and they're posters with hotlines, for suicide hotlines. If you feel like committing suicide, call the hotline. And they have it on the other side also, so the pedestrians walking down the sidewalk can see it. And my Native American friends have said, the young people are committing suicide 5, 4, and 5 a night on the reservations. And the reservations have, the Indian reservations in the United States, they have the mineral rights to them. They were put on the poorest land, but they have 85% of the energy sources. The uranium, the coal, whatever that creates energy, the oil and gas, and they had the misfortune of being given that great wealth, and they've said to me many times, why can't we just give them the mineral rights and have them leave us alone? I said they don't work that way. So these technologies, now what is so alarming about what's happening in the universities is that in the fall of 2015, less than a year ago, the state university campuses were turned over to Satanism.
Okay, let's stop at this juncture. How do we substantiate that? Where do we look in order to verify that claim?
Well,
right, because we're doing solid scholarship here.